All right, so I woke up this morning and I was like, you know what? I'm ready to start a new series on my channel. It's going to be about low star servants and talking about why they're good. But I woke up and I see this tomfoolery when I log into FGO this morning. So we got the second banner, but the second banner we were expecting was this. We were expecting to get Archer Artoria plus Melta Lilith because the Korean server got that. We're like, all right. So we know that she's coming back and we know that, she's going to be hitting sometime in the middle of the event. But then, it's the 4th right now as of me recording this video. And I mean, well, I'm going to upload this later on today, so happy double upload. But we were like, all right, I guess we're not getting a second banner. Huh, that's really strange. And then they were like, nope, here you go. So we're still going to bring Melt around, but it's going to be Abigail and Osaka Behime Archer. And I'm like, well, it makes sense, right? Because Melta Lilith and Osaka Behime alongside Raiko are the people you use to clear out the map, and I guess Abigail makes sense because it is like the foreigner event, right? We're fighting like all these outer gods and everything, but man, can I just say that I really wanted, that I really was hoping that even though it doesn't make as much sense, I wanted my Archer Artoria. I wanted to try to summon her because she is one of the servants that has eluded me for the longest, so I'm a little sad about that. But in this video, we're going to just kind of talk about the banner, and obviously, you should not summon on this banner. I mean, unless you're a huge Melta Lilith fan, I don't see a lot of value in this banner. And even if you are a huge fan of Melt, we have a lot of really strong banners coming in. Keep in mind, we're in November, and I know Muramasa is stupid dummy popular. He's about like 2 months away, like almost on the dot. So if you want to summon for someone like that, or Doman, or Ibuki, or any of those other insanely powerful servants that are going to be coming out, you might want to hold your Saint Quartz. But again, before we begin, if you have not already, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for daily, sometimes double daily FGO content. Because, sometimes I just wake up and I'm like, dude, I'm not putting this video off for a day. This thing dropped right now. I got to let people know that it's probably not the highest value banner to summon on, right? Also, if you want to see me play FGO live, I'm going to be doing that in a couple hours from now because uploading this later into the day. I'm doing that on my Twitch, which is linked down in the description down below. I'm going to start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But with all that being said, let's just go ahead and start getting into this video. So obviously, I think the main draw for a lot of people for this banner is going to be Melta Lilith, because Melta Lilith is really, really strong. She kind of has the Rider Mordred problem where at like lower NP levels, specifically if you only have NP 1, she can struggle to kill enemies sometimes. I mean, she's a looping god, very similar to Rider Mordred, where, I'll be using Rider Mordred that I unfortunately only have at NP 1 on the NA version, and she will loop 100% of her NP back, but the enemies will still be alive. And I've had that problem on the JP server where I actually have Melta Lilith Lancer, although again, also at NP1. And sometimes she will struggle just a little bit to kind of actually finish off some of those servants. I think a lot of that issue comes from her skill 3. Her skill 3 is a massive battery potentially, and it's also a huge attack buff, but it's only for 1 turn, and you really don't want to waste it. But you would really like to have it for all 3 nodes, because if she had that for all 3 nodes, it'd be fine. But you got to keep in mind that pretty much when you're using Melta Lilith, you're actually hitting for a lot less than you'll see on like the damage charts, for instance, because you're not having that up for all 3 nodes. So that's kind of the only thing she could struggle with. Still a very, very strong servant, and I can understand people going in specifically for her, but I still would just at least advise you to wait and like just give it a couple of days, think about it, and see if you really want to go for her as opposed to any of the other people that are going to be going on rate up. Because unfortunately, it's not a super high value banner, because Abigail is like one of those servants that she's not bad, but she's not great, right? Like she doesn't suck, but she's not this insanely OP servant. She's very similar to like Sitanai, right? Like Sitanai, a lot of people think that she's trash or they think she's really good, and I sit kind of in the middle where I'm like, she's okay. Like you can use her to some good effect, and you can have some turns where she looks really good, but you probably have better options in your box. I mean, like one of the better things about Abigail would be like, if you don't have a foreigner in your box, now you do. You have a single target foreigner for whatever scenarios you need to go fight like some big Berserker Chungus boss. But if that was the case, you probably should have summoned on the Yang and MHXX banner and snagged one of them, because I would just argue that either one of them is better than Abigail. So it's like the 5-star isn't super great, and if you're gonna like immediately summon right now, you also run the risk of getting Osaka Behime Archer, who I think gets a lot of flack. I don't think she's like dog water. Like, I don't think she's that bad, but she's definitely not worth going for, especially if you want Lancer Melt. Sorry, I just woke up from a nap, so I'm a little tired, and then I saw this. But if you're gonna summon on this, at least wait for like her solo raid up day. At least give yourself the best odds possible of getting her. But I'm always like a huge proponent of making sure that you use your Saint Quartz to like their maximum value, right? Because at least when we were playing with DW, they weren't the most generous when it came to Saint Quartz. It seems that Lesengle is giving out a bit more. I've noticed that like on JP, for instance, where it's a bit harder to like get around the loophole of, you know, spending real money for Saint Quartz, right? And so you gotta like grind and everything. It's become a bit easier to get your hands on Saint Quartz. And like, for instance, for Huyan, I think I was able to get like a good couple of multis ready like after I blew through my initial like set of Saint Quartz, right? So they are a little bit more generous, I guess, but you still want to put yourself in like the best positions possible, right? Like, because, you know, if you're going to gamble, you want to give yourself the best rewards possible, right? You want to set yourself up for success. So Melt Lilith is very good, and I would say that she is worth going for, but I don't think this is a high value banner to be summoning on, if that makes sense. So, you know, I would just advise you, hold off your Saint Quartz. Give it a couple of days, think about it. You got to wait a couple of days anyway for her to go on solo raid up, unless for whatever reason you specifically want Osaka Behime Archer. Like if you're one of those people that is just a really diehard fan of her, then I can kind of understand that. Obviously, whenever I do like videos like this where I'm like, you shouldn't summon on this banner, a lot of that goes out the door if your favorite character is like Abigail or something, right? Because if that's your favorite character, I completely understand you being like, well, I'm still going to try to make them work regardless. I mean, me, for instance, I still think that like Gilgamesh could get a couple of buffs so he could be like super good and like destroying everything in the game. But I still try to use him in like every boss fight, right? I still try to make him work on a lot of things because he's my favorite character. So obviously, I understand that as well. You know, trying to like force your favorite character to get things done. So if Abigail is your favorite or if Osaka Behime Archer is your favorite, then by all means, you know, they're going to make you much happier than getting the new big bad like destructive unit that crushes everything in the game, because at least you're using a servant that you like. But I don't know, judged on like kind of how like things are in the community, there's not a lot of people that I've like seen that are like, oh yeah, Osaka Behime Archer, that's my favorite character. Or like Abigail, they're like, dude, Abigail is my favorite. Usually for Abigail, it's just like, yeah, dude, pancakes, I love that, you know, pancake meme, that's all I'm about. But I'm like, I don't think they're actually like, oh, that's my favorite character. The deep implications in Salem was really just reaching out to me or something. But yeah, regardless, I just kind of wanted to put this little video out there and just be like, hey man, you really should, you know, use your Saint Quartz a bit more wisely. Keep in mind that we have like absolute banger servants on the horizon. Like we know that Murasaki is coming out. Dude, I forgot her name for a second. I wanted to call her like Raiko, but I was like, because they look the same, bro. But I wanted to call her Raiko. But Murasaki's coming out, and then we also have Kintoki, an actual Raiko, coming out as well, alongside Doman, Ibuki, and then later on Vitra, who again I'm not the biggest fan of, but I know a lot of people are excited for her. And then following that, you have Muramasa. Like that's the immediate next like 2-month future, and you kind of have to like weigh your options and also anticipate if for like Lost Belt 5.5 or for the Christmas event, if they're going to shill out other servants, right? Like for instance, I don't like. It seems like they're kind of trying to tie in the second banners to the actual event. So for instance, something like Christmas, right, where like Arjuna Altar, not going to spoil anything, he is kind of part of that story, and people were expecting him to get a raid up when this originally came out on JP.